Hey crafty friends, this is Jenny from crafttestdummies.com, and today I want to talk with you about the glittered napkin technique. Now in this video I'm going to cover 3 different ways that you can achieve that look using whatever supplies that you have, and you'll be able to decide from this video which one you like best. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing you need are some gorgeous printed napkins. You can find these at the dollar store Tuesday morning, but here's the first tip. You only need the top ply, which means that when you cut the napkin apart, you'll see that there's one area that usually is printed, and you just want to separate the back so that you don't have that extra white tissue. You don't need that. Discard it. And I am actually adhering mine using a Xyron base. So what I do is I take my card base, I run it through the Xyron, I remove the backing paper as you can see here, and then I go ahead and I put my napkin on top. I do that with 2 of the methods, including this first one I'm going to show you, which is using embossing ink and embossing powder. This just really stabilizes the napkin and lets you do everything else you want to do without fear of ripping it. Okay, so for the first technique, I'm using an embossing dauber. Now, you can also use a regular embossing pad like a Versamark or the one from Ranger and just dab it onto the top. You can also put your embossing ink onto a table and then use a brayer to put it on. But I like the dauber because it gives me a lot of control. You're going to cover the entire thing and then go ahead and sprinkle your embossing powder on top. You'll be able to see pretty quickly if you've missed any areas or if it's kind of dry. The embossing powder won't grab. So then go ahead and use your heat embossing tool to melt everything together. And what's kind of interesting about this technique is that normally embossing powder makes things like really raised and shiny. But because you're using this dry napkin, what's happening is it'll actually soak down into the napkin and create a different kind of texture. It's not the raised and shiny technique that you are normally used to seeing, but what you get is this kind of cool glittery effect. It turns it into a piece of glitter paper, which I think is pretty cool. Now here I missed an area, so I'm going to go back and just add a little bit more on top, which creates kind of a seamless effect. Okay, so for technique number 2, what we're going to do is actually adhere the napkin to the card base. Then what we're going to do is run it back through the Xyron again, but this time upside down, so that now I've got all of the sticky on the top. Now what I can do is actually just use ultrafine glitter on the entire top of this to create that kind of glittered effect. And I tried to be dainty and I tried to sprinkle it and it did not work. Don't be dainty, kind of pour it on and then rub it in with your fingers. Now, you'll also see pretty quickly, I'm going to kind of dust the excess away with a stencil brush. You'll see where the Xyron did not grab. So I actually go back in with a little bit of glue, and you guys know me by now. I love my on-point glue, and I'm just going to fill in those areas a little bit with some ultrafine glue, and then add a little bit more glitter on top. And I really kind of feel like it did a good enough job masking those areas, and that the glitter stuck pretty well. But that's just another technique. You can also use a double sticky sheet if you like. My tip here though is just make sure you burnish that backing paper down pretty well before you move on so that it grabs all the way. Okay, so for technique number 3, I'm going to use Mod Podge. Now, you may or may not realize that there is an extreme glitter formula to Mod Podge. It's awesome. There's also like a sparkle version, but I'm just using this extreme glitter because I have it. So I'm adding a little bit to the top of the tag, just a thin, light coat. Then I'm applying my napkin on top, and that'll kind of grab. And then starting from the middle and working my way outward, I'm applying another coat of Mod Podge. Now, the thing with Mod Podge is that it's a water-based product, so of course it's going to wrinkle a little bit. This is really not too much of an issue as long as you're not pouring it on. If you're applying it with a brush, as you see me doing here, notice that there is not a lot of curling or warping, and when it's dry, it goes completely translucent, and then you can just go ahead and trim away the excess with your scissors. Now, little pro tip, go ahead and put it on your craft mat to dry and just leave it there. You won't get it curling and it peels off right away. Okay, I just wanted to take a little look at some of my samples that are pretty much done. This is done with the holographic sparkle embossing powder from Recollections. And as you can see, it does have a nice holographic sparkle. The texture is kind of gritty, but the good news is that it doesn't rub off a whole lot on your hands. There is a little bit of rub off, but it's not too terribly bad. But the effect is overall very nice. Now, if we go ahead and take a look at the finished card that had the Xyron, this is Xyron with extra fine glitter on top of it. So what you get here is actually a lot more glitter and coverage, and it kind of dulls back the image underneath. Can you see here? There's a lot of texture and shine, but also you get a lot more rub off if that is a concern of yours. The best thing to do is just massage it down the best you can and then hope for the best. It's not going to come off, but it's going to, give a little bit of glitter residue. Now, the other option is, here we go. Here's that Mod Podge sample. And as you can see, this has, by the way, one of my favorite things, the Extreme Glitter, because it has all of the colors of rainbow in here. And it doesn't rub off at all because it's actually inside the Mod Podge. And I like the texture of it overall. So really, of the three methods, the cheapest method is the Mod Podge, right? Because Xyron refills have a tendency to be a little expensive, and using all of that embossing powder and embossing, whatever this stuff is called, this embossing dabber stuff, costs a lot of money. So if you can handle working on a matte surface and giving it a little bit of wait time, really, Mod Podge is kind of the way to go. Well, I hope you enjoyed this little option video of how to do glittered napkin techniques. I hope you enjoyed it. Please give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment, and above all, have a crafty day. Thanks now. Bye-bye.